Good morning, everybody. My name is Tim Atkins, and I am happy and proud to serve as your Director of Lifespan Religious Exploration, and my pronouns are he, him. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Oklahoma City, where our mission is to explore the eternal, nurture community, and pursue the common good. We welcome you in your brokenness and in your wholeness. No matter who you have been, who you are, or who you are becoming, we greet you today with love. I now invite Annie Bynum to light our chalice this morning. Annie?
We light this chalice.
We light this chalice
as a symbol of our sacred time together.
as a symbol of our sacred time together.
The burning chalice represents
The burning chalice represents
the light of reason and science,
the light of reason and science,
the warmth of loving community,
the warmth of loving community,
the cleansing heat of justice,
the cleansing heat of justice,
and the flame of hope.
and the flame of hope.
Yay! And it happens to be Annie's birthday today. I think you're 7 years old, is that right? Yeah. Happy birthday, Annie. Well, good morning. I'm Reverend Diana Davies, and my pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the lead minister at First Unitarian. At our November 22nd service, we introduced the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee's Guest at Your Table program. As a reminder, the idea is to place a box on your table for the next several weeks in order to remember the people who are working for justice in their communities with the support of the UUSC. You might put a small amount of money into the box each day and then count it out and send a check for that amount to the church by the end of the month. And please just be sure to note that your donation is for the UUSC. Over 4 Sundays, we've been introducing you to 4 guests representing different UUSC justice partnerships. So you'll have a better sense of who is with you at your table. So today I'd like to introduce you to Chief Sherelle Parfait Dardar, leader of the Grand Cayo Dulac Band of the Biloxi Chitimacha Choctaw tribe.
There were once many trees on our land, and they sink away or die from saltwater intrusion. The vastly wooded areas we used to run barefoot in as children are becoming less and less as time passes. Things are changing so quickly. I fear that my grandchildren will never know the joys of what I experienced as an Indian child living on the bayou. The hurricanes come and ravage our community with wind and water. Our homes are left unprotected by our local government. We are unable to afford the necessary insurances to cover our properties due to the lack of protection so desperately needed. We are given no choice but to struggle to rebuild or relocate to higher grounds outside of our community. They say we can't be saved. They say that we have to relocate to preserve life. Once again, they have proven us to be expendable in their eyes. But we have proven that we never back down from the impossible. We will continue to fight for our way of life, for ours is unlike any other. We will fight until the last tree has died, until the last bit of land has washed away. We will always fight for our home.
Our opening carol is the Wassail Song, which is an old English song with roots in pagan traditions. On one hand, it's about children going door to door caroling, expecting to get treats from neighbors. On the other hand, it harkens back to a time when people would go into the orchards in the coldest nights of the year to light fires, drink alcohol, sing, and bless the trees. It's sung today by a member of our choir, Kate Rotler.
Here we come, a-wassailing among the leaves so green. Here we come, a-wandering so fair to be seen. Love and joy come to you, and to you your wassail too. And God bless you and send you a happy new year. And God send you a happy new year. We are not daily beggars who beg from door to door, but we are neighbors' children whom you have seen before. Love and joy come to you, and to you your wassail too. And God bless you and send you a happy new year. And God send you a happy new year. God bless the master of this house, likewise his mistress too, and all the little children who round the table go. Love and joy come to you, and to you your wassail too. And God bless you and send you a happy new year. And God send you a happy new year.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Oh, put me in the mood. It was great. So today we have a special family winter solstice service. And we will be reading a story throughout today's service, the book, Lucia and the Light, written by Phyllis Root, illustrated by Marie Grandpré, and published by Candlewick Press. This story is inspired by the traditional Scandinavian winter holiday of Santa Lucia, a celebration of the winter solstice that invites the light to return again. Let us begin our story. Lucia and the Light. Lucia and her mother and baby brother lived with a velvet brown cow and a milk white cat in a little house at the foot of a mountain in the far north. The cow gave milk, the cat slept by the fire, and the baby cooed and grew fat by the hearth. They were happy together, even when the winters piled snow outside their door. Well, one year, the wind blew down the mountain fiercer than it ever had before. The wind screamed so loud sometimes that Lucia could not hear her mother humming as she rocked the baby by the fire. Frost covered the nail heads in the walls, and the wind that sneaked in through the cracks tossed the last of the flour in the barrel around, so that it seemed to snow inside the house as well as out. One day, the sun did not rise over the mountaintop. And the next day, and the next, and the next, not a glimmer of sun shone, no matter how long Lucia watched for sunrise. Dark roosted on the land. "Where has the light gone?" Lucia asked. "I don't know," her mother replied. "Even in the oldest tales never told of this darkness." She wrapped Lucia in her arms. "We will be each other's sun until the real sun returns," she said. As the dark days wore on, the baby began to fret and fuss, and the cow gave less and less milk, until one day she was dry as a stone. The fire smoked and shivered and refused to heat the corners of the house or bake the bread. At last, Lucia could stand it no longer. I will go look for the sun, she said to her mother. Perhaps it has lost its way. It's too cold and dark, said her mother, and there may be trolls. My grandmother told me how when she was a girl, in the bitterest of winters, the trolls came down from the mountain and stole chickens and pigs and even a child. Lucia shivered and hugged her baby brother close. Still, she said, don't worry, Mama. I'll find the sun and be back in time for breakfast. Though how could anyone tell when breakfast time was in all that dark? I can't let you go. We will live without the sun if we must, said Lucia's mother. The baby wailed, thin and high, and Lucia's mother shushed him. Lucia made up her mind to do something, anything, to find the sun and bring it home again. At last, when her mother, rocking the baby, fell into a fitful sleep, Lucia put on the warmest socks, hat, and mittens that her mother had knit, pulled on boots, buttoned up her coat, and wrapped her scarf around her neck. Into one pocket, she slipped a stale crust of bread. Into the other pocket, she put the tinder box, for who knew when she might have need of a fire to keep her warm. She kissed her sleeping mother's cheek, the baby's fine, soft hair, the milk-white cat, and even the cow. But when Lucia opened the door, the cat jumped from the windowsill into her hood and went out in the swirling snow with her. Lucia was glad for the company and the warmth of the milk-white cat around her neck. Lucia strapped on her skis and set off up the mountain where the sun started to rise. The pale light of the stars showed her way. Reverend Diana?
So as Lucia heads off into the unknown, armed with nothing but a tinderbox, which is a thing that you use to make a spark, like a book of matches, and a tag-along cat. Let's pause for a moment and look at the situation. Our protagonist is named Lucia for a reason. Lucia was the name of a 4th century Italian Catholic saint who, oddly, was enthusiastically adopted by Protestant Scandinavians. To this day, in Scandinavian countries, on December 13th, which is the date of the winter solstice before the calendars changed, families are awakened by daughters wearing crowns of candles representing Santa Lucia, bearing gifts of coffee and freshly baked buns. Well, maybe the affinity for this Italian saint is because her name and her imagery bore so many resemblances to pagan Nordic beliefs. Some say that Santa Lucia, with her crown of candles and with her saint's day on the old date of the solstice, is just a Christian reimagining of an ancient Nordic sun goddess. But there's another interesting connection between the name Lucia and the winter solstice, which in Norway was also called Lucy Long Night. Lucy, spelled Lussi, was a witch who had an entourage of gnomes and trolls. Nordic people believed that all work had to be done before the solstice, or Lucy would smash their chimneys and steal their children. For centuries, Nordic people wouldn't leave their homes on the longest night for fear that they'd be snatched up by trolls or witches. In fact, those buns that candle-crowned daughters bring to their families on December 13th, they are known as lucikat, Lucy cats. Cats meant to ward off supernatural beings with bad intent. And once we know all of this, everything in this story is infused with an element of magic. The name of the protagonist, the fact she's accompanied by a cat, the timing of the winter solstice. But what we find, at least in this point in the story, is different. Lucia's mother that they are experiencing a darkness unlike any known before. But that doesn't mean anything supernatural has happened. Because look at their situation. There's a baby, but there's no father to be found. Where is he? Has he died? Has he abandoned them? Where's the extended family? Where are the neighbors who would be coming to help? And what will Lucia, her mother, and her baby brother eat when there's no more milk and the last bits of flour have all blown away in the bitter wind? Now, there's nothing magical in poverty or in isolation, but there is desperation and there is courage. And so Lucia sets off like so many poor and desperate children have set off in search of something better across the Sonoran Desert, across the Rio Grande, across the Mediterranean Sea. Lucia is going in search of the sun, but what she's really seeking is a way to save her family. And this is a situation that's all too real and all too common. Regardless of her name, Lucia has no magical powers. What she has is a piece of bread, a spark of hope, and a loyal friend. And I'd like to turn it over to Ingrid Young, the president of our congregation, for our offering.
Good morning. My name is Ingrid Young. I am this year's president of the Board of Trustees, and my pronouns are she, her. And every Sunday we take an offering. All the cash and designated checks from that offering go directly to external nonprofit organizations doing good work in our community, our Change for Change partners. This month, our Change for Change partner is the Friends of Will Rogers Garden Foundation. The mission of the Friends of Will Rogers Garden Foundation is to offer financial support for beautification, education, and preservation projects at Will Rogers Garden in order to enhance the use and appreciation of the gardens by the public and the greater Oklahoma City community. The Memory Garden is a specialized garden designed for people with dementia or Alzheimer's disease to share with their families and caregivers. While we listen to the offertory, you may wish to make a donation to Change for Change partner using a credit card through our website. Or this could be a good time to find your checkbook, write out a check, and put it aside to mail to First Unitarian tomorrow morning. Let today's offering reflect our highest aspirations for the work of this church in the world.
Lucia and the Light, Part 2. Up and up the mountain Lucia skied. Swoosh, swoosh, the air growing icier as she went. Time seemed frozen. Lucia's fingers were sticks of ice. Surely days had passed while she pushed her skis up the mountain. She shoved her hands into her pockets to warm them and felt something hard. The bread. The crust from the last loaf of bread her mother had baked in the fretful fire. It was as frozen as her fingers, but softened as she held it in her mouth and was the sweetest thing Lucia had ever tasted. She shared bits with the milk-white cat, who meowed his thanks and licked at Lucia's mitten. Lucia knew that as long as her legs would carry her, she would continue up the mountain. Swoosh, swoosh. The snow squeaked beneath her skis. Her breath froze on her hair in clouds of ice. Icicles hung from the trees like frozen tears. Even the sparrows hid under their wings. Shoosh, shoosh. The trail grew steeper. The path led Lucia into a stand of trees where even the starlight couldn't shine. Lucia's skis slipped and she fell. The snow was soft, almost as soft as her feather bed back home. Lucia closed her eyes. The milk-white cat nipped Lucia's chin, but Lucia kept on dreaming. If she were home, warm in her own soft bed, she would sleep and sleep and sleep. The milk-white cat nipped Lucia's chin again. Ow! Lucia had almost fallen asleep in the snow, just like old Bjorn, who had been found last winter, frozen stiff and hard as cordwood. Lucia rubbed the heaviness from her eyes and hugged the milk-white cat, then tucked him back into her hood. Shoosh, 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 shoosh. At last, Lucia and the milk-white cat came out of the trees and reached the top of the mountain. All they could see were rocks, ice, scraggly bushes, and the far edge of the mountain falling into darkness. Lucia's heart fell too. Where was the sun? Then a rock moved, and another. A rock sprouted an arm, 2 arms. Rocky heads with stony eyes rose up from the ground. Many heads, many eyes, all watching Lucia. Not rocks, trolls! Part 2 of our story. So the winter solstice has become increasingly meaningful to me over the past few years. There's something about the metaphor that really speaks to me. We've reached the point of the longest night, of the deepest darkness. The upside is that it's bound to get better from here. The downside is that we're at rock bottom, and there are some pretty scary things that lurk in the night. So the concept of trolls is rooted in Scandinavian mythology. Trolls were seen as mythological creatures that represented the worst traits humans could have. Now, although each troll is different, trolls across myths share 2 common traits. Number 1, trolls are never helpful to humans. And number 2, they thrive in the dark. In fact, the light can turn trolls into stone. You know, we all have modern day trolls that we face when we're at the lowest of lows in the darkest of night. Everyone is battling their own set of trolls, and each person's battle is no worse than anyone else's. Some people in this very room are in the darkest times as they battle against the trolls of disease. Others are facing against the trolls of depression, and others are facing the towering troll of financial struggle. And I myself have battled against the troll of guilt more times than I care to admit. Each person's set of trolls is different than anyone else's. But there are a few trolls that seem to pop up over and over again and try to keep us from the sun. So today I want to name 3 in particular that affect us deeply this time of year: the troll of self-doubt, the troll of grief, and the troll of loneliness. So self-doubt and a lack of confidence is a troll that haunts us at every stage in life. In school, we worry we aren't smart enough or we aren't popular enough. In college, we worry that we don't know what we're going to do with the rest of our lives. In our young adulthood, we doubt we'll ever make it like the generations before us. In our adulthood, we doubt we've got it all together like we should. If we're parents, we doubt what we're doing. We doubt we're doing the right thing for our kids around 500 times a day. In our senior years, we doubt if we lived the life we wanted to live. The troll of self-doubt is fed by our fears until it grows so large it paralyzes us in our tracks, unable to consider moving forward. Grief is a troll that will follow us around for months and years. We all suffer and mourn loss, and this year especially, we are grieving so much. Loved ones who have died in a senseless pandemic, being isolated, unable to see our friends and family like we want to this time of year. We all mourn, and we all grieve for our losses and the losses of others. And this time of year especially, grief can rise up from the mountains we climb and remind us of all that we've lost. Grief can truly be the gift that keeps on giving and is among the most resilient trolls that we face. And this is a time of year where the troll of loneliness can seem too big to overcome. We see images all over about celebrating the winter holidays with our families, and even our common carols lift this ideal up. What if you don't really have a home to go to for the holidays? What if the home you're in hasn't really been a safe place for you during the lockdowns? What if you live alone and rely on regularly seeing friends and family this time of year? It's hard. Each carol or fanciful commercial can seem like a lumbering troll, reminding you of your loneliness, reminding you of a time when you were surrounded by the warmth of family all those years ago in an easier time. We all suffer from loneliness at times. People can feel lonely in marriages, at school surrounded by classmates, sitting in a sanctuary surrounded by love. All of us, from age 2 to age 122, can be struck by the troll of loneliness. When you feel like you're the only one fighting against the trolls in the longest night, it's far too easy to lose hope. We are all battling our own trolls right now. I invite you to share in the chat what trolls you're facing during this longest night. The troll of anxiety is deep and hard this time of year. The troll of not doing enough. Yes, feeling inadequate, comparing those Christmas holiday decorations to others. The troll of loneliness, the troll of unknown illness, the troll of missing our family. Yes. The trolls of being alone, the troll of feeling inadequate, the troll of missing music, the troll of missing friends and family. These trolls, we are all fighting trolls this time of year. Thank you for sharing, and you can continue to share in the chat. May we all find comfort in knowing that we aren't alone battling the trolls of the deepest night. I now invite Reverend Diana to lead us in a time of prayer and meditation. Diana?
At some parts of the world, or in some parts of the world, at the time of winter solstice, it was traditional to put out the hearth fire in your home. The very fire that you had struggled to keep going throughout the rest of the year. At the same time, a great bonfire would be lit in a central place, and people would gather coals that they'd use to rekindle their home fires. In this way, the things of the old year were cleared away, and space was made for the new, specifically the new as it was held and nurtured by the community. So if you have a candle, if you have a chalice flame near you, I ask you to get that now. If you don't, it's okay. We're just going to do some imagination work. So as you hold your flame, or as you imagine the flame inside of you, I ask you to just take a moment and think about the things of the old year that you are ready to let go. The things that occupied more of your time and your attention than they needed to, and that maybe distracted you from the important things. The things that don't serve you anymore. Just take a moment. And you might imagine each of those things adding up, sort of adding fuel to the fire, building the flame up. When you feel like you have that list of things you're letting go, go ahead and blow out the flame. And if you're imagining it, you might want to reach up your arms and just let them go, as though you're just blowing it out. Might just sit for a moment in that sense of emptiness as we've let things go. And then thinking about the things now that you have some space that you would like to invite into your life in the coming year. What do you want to make room for so you can focus on it? The things that matter. When you have that list of the things you want to invite into your life in the coming year, if you're here with us on Zoom, I ask you to just look around. You might go to gallery view if you're not there already. Just take in the people of this community. Imagine that this is a community that has created this great central bonfire. And looking at these faces, knowing this community is here to support you, imagine you pull from that fire a coal, an ember. And use that, you might imagine that you relight the fire inside. And if you have your actual candle with something to light it with, you might even want to rekindle that flame. Honoring those things that we have let go, celebrating those things that we have invited in, and in gratitude for the community that holds us and supports us. May it be so. Our hymn is one that is beloved and is often sung at Christmas Eve services, but we'll be doing it today. It's "For So the Children Come." It's from our Teal hymnal, number 1061. The words are by the great Sophia Lyon-Fawes. I'm mispronouncing her name. Music by Jason Shelton, and it's again performed by Kate Rottler, and you'll hear my voice coming in for the narration.
Night a child is born, is a holy night, a time for singing, a time for wandering, a time for worshiping. Each night a child is born, is a holy night.
For so the children come, and so they have been coming. Always the same way they come, born of the seed of their parents.
for singing, a time for wandering, a time for worshiping. Each night a child is born, is a holy night.
No angels herald their beginnings. No prophets predict their future courses. No wise men see a star to show where to find the babe that will save humankind.
Each night a child is born, is a holy night, a time for singing, a time for wandering, a time for worshiping. Each night a child is born, is a holy night.
Yet, each night a child is born is a whole night. Parents sit inside their children's cribs, feel glory in the sight of new life beginning. They ask, how will this new life end? Or will it ever end?
Each night a child is born, is a holy night, a time for singing, a time for wandering, a time for worshiping. Each night a child is born, is a holy night.
Each night a child is born is a holy night, a time for singing, a time for wondering, time for worshiping.
Each night a child is born, is a holy night, a time for singing, a time for wandering, a time for worshiping. Each night a child is born, is a holy night.
Beautiful. Part 3 of our story. The trolls crowded around Lucia. Lumpy fingers poked her. Supper? Rolled a troll with branches growing from his ears. No, lunch, shouted a troll with mossy teeth. Breakfast, screeched a troll with icicles hanging from his nose. The trolls stomped their feet and screamed with laughter. The ground shook. The milk-white cat hissed. Please, Lucia whispered, Do you know where the sun has gone? Trolls found sun sleeping, shouted one troll. Wrap sun in blankets so sun can't get out, shouted another. Now trolls never have to hide, crowed another. Eat any time we want. Little girl want sun? Asked one troll. Oh, yes, please, whispered Lucia. Come and get it, the troll taunted, kicking a bundle of rags at Lucia. Not a gleam of light shone out of the rags. How could anything so small and so shabby be the sun? Lucia reached for the rag ball. A troll foot kicked it away. Lucia reached for the ball again, and another foot kicked it, and another, and another. Lucia stumbled through a maze of troll legs, and a leg shot out right in front of her. Splunk! She fell face down in the snow. Something hard poked at Lucia's ribs. The tinderbox! Wait, Lucia cried through chattering teeth. That ball of rags is not the sun. Trolls have sun, the trolls thundered. Trolls have sun. Lucia's heart beat fast, but she clambered to her knees and pulled off her mittens. She took the tinderbox from her pocket and then tried to strike a spark. Scritch, scritch. The trolls leaned in closer. Lucia's fingers shook. Scritch, scritch. Blue sparks skittered and died. Blue like her mother's apron. Blue like her baby brother's eyes. Lucia struck harder. Scritch, 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 scritch. And a spark caught on the dry moss in the tinderbox. A little flame bloomed, warming Lucia's fingers, the way the fire back home used to. Look, Lucia stood and held out the box. I have the sun right here. The trolls peered inside. That's not the sun! A troll howled and he knocked the tinderbox from Lucia's hands. Flames sputtered across the snow and died. Eat her! Eat her now! Get sun! Catch the kitty for dessert! But the milk-white cat was quicker than the trolls. He leaped from Lucia's hood and batted the rag ball out of reach. Faster and faster the ball rolled, rags unwinding behind it like ribbons on the snow. Stop! Stop! The troll screamed. The last rag unrolled, the blanket fell off, the sun blazed forth, dazzlingly bright. Lucia covered her eyes. Crack! All around Lucia, trolls turned to stone. Shadows stretched black across the snow. Like a wheel, the sun rolled on right off the edge of the mountaintop and up into the sky, growing bigger and brighter as it climbed. Black sky paled to rosy dawn. The mountaintops glowed. Reverend Diana?
The sun hidden in a dirty ball of rags? That seems far-fetched, and even Lucia is skeptical when the trolls first tell her this. And yet, earlier this year, astronomers were studying a bright spot in the southern sky, two stars that are so close together that they can be seen with the naked eye, appearing to be just one bright star. Now, this wasn't a new point of interest for scientists. They had been studying the same patch of sky since the 1980s, but they began looking at those two close stars in a new way. They watched how they were orbiting, and they figured out that there was a third partner in their interstellar dance, and it had to be very, very large and yet invisible. What they discovered was that the mystery partner was a massive black hole, 4 times the mass of our sun and 2,500 light years closer to Earth than the next closest black hole. As one astronomer put it, when you consider the scale of the Milky Way, this newly discovered black hole is, quote, in our backyard, almost on our doorstep, unquote. How can something so massive and relatively close to Earth go unnoticed for so long? Well, it could go unnoticed because human beings first had to learn how to look in a different way. Finding black holes or any other major scientific discovery isn't just a matter of squinting in the right way. It's more complicated than adjusting your eyes so that you can suddenly see where Waldo is. To see in a new way when it requires advances in knowledge and technology. And of course, it also requires simply looking, paying close attention. And this is where science and magic, like two great planets, align. I'm not talking about sleight of hand magic, the man who pulls a rabbit out of a hat or guesses which card you picked. That kind of magic relies on the observer not paying attention, not looking in the right way. So they miss the most important thing going on. This is what Lucia is attempting to do to the trolls, distracting them with a fake sun that is nothing more than a match spark. And yet, at that moment when she strikes the tinderbox, something important happens. She notices that the color of the flame is the same blue as her mother's apron, the same blue as
Reverend Ann is having an
her
audio.
baby brother's eyes.
There we go.
And in that noticing, there is power to feel because Lucia strikes the tinderbox. But in her noticing the color of the spark and connecting the trolls in the first place, the sun is revealed within herself. And maybe that is the light that turns the trolls to stone. Love can be incredibly powerful when it is focused. Think of a person fully engaged in doing the thing she loves. Think of a person gazing lovingly at their sleeping child, or looking deeply into the eyes of their beloved. That power is undeniable, and it can be outcomes of magic. The lead up to this longest night of the year is unremarkable. I know that it happens frequently. Willie knows that it's 7. I'll think, wow, why is it so dark? Well, of course, the sun hasn't disappeared. The days were gradually getting, I just didn't notice. I was things. There are those who do this. Changing the sun. Oh, I've had lots of technical difficulties today.
As I said in the chat, Dana, the trolls are out in force with our technical.
I'll try to skip to the end. Tomorrow, besides the winter solstice, there will be an astronomical event, the likes of which hasn't happened in 800 years. The largest planets with the slowest trajectory across the sky will be so closely aligned as to appear almost as a single bright star. Many of us who would otherwise have no particular interest in astronomy will go outside 45 minutes after sundown tomorrow to see the great conjunction, simply because of the novelty of it. So we can say that we saw this thing that no one has seen for hundreds of years. And some of us are intrigued by the timing of this conjunction on the winter solstice. very near the day on which Christians celebrate the birth of Jesus. There is some magic to be found in thinking that what we see in the sky tomorrow night might look something like what astronomers could have seen back in 7 BCE when there were 3 conjunctions in that one year. A phenomenon so rare that some of those who studied the sky intently might have gone in search of its meaning, expecting to find a miracle at the end of their journey. But the stillness of solstice and the wonder of the cosmos offers us is an opportunity to pause, to put aside the distractions, and to pay attention, to look at nature as we would look at our beloved, with awe, with curiosity, overwhelmed by the cosmic beauty of it all.
Our story concludes. Lucia lifted her face to the sun. Light and warmth poured over her. Lucia picked up the little milk-white cat and kissed its fur, as silky and soft as her baby brother's hair. Good kitty, Lucia said. Good, good kitty. Back down the mountain, Lucia skied, through a forest of trolls and a forest of trees. The milk-white cat tucked into her hood. Her pale blue shadow raced ahead of her. Swoosh, swoosh. Icicles glinted and dripped as she fell. Swoosh, swoosh. Sparrows woke up and hopped in the pine branches, shaking snow on Lucia's hair. Down and down the mountain, Lucia followed her own tracks all the way home, where pink smoke curled from the chimney. Sunlight followed Lucia through the front door and poured across the floor, as warm and sweet as honey. A fire blazed on the hearth, and the baby cooed and clapped to see Lucia. I thought I had lost you, her mother cried, sweeping Lucia into a hug. And then the sun came up, and I knew you would come home. My brave child. Lucia's mother held her close. My sunshine, she whispered, light of my heart. And after breakfast, Lucia and the milk-white cat fell fast asleep in the sunshine. The end. And now, with that same sense of spirit and joy with the sun returning, I invite you to join with the Epperson and Ella, Tracy, and Zoe Epperson in singing Deck the Hall, traditional Christmas carol.
One, two, three, four. Deck the halls with boughs of holly, fa la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la. Don we now our gay apparel, fa la 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 la. Troll the ancient Yuletide carol, fa la 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 la. See the blazing Yule before us, fa la 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 la. Strike the harp and join the chorus, fa la 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 la. Follow me in merry measure, fa la 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 la. While I tell of Yuletide treasure, fa la 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 la. Fast away the old year passes, fa la 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 la. Hail the new year, lads and lasses, fa la 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 la. Sing we joyous all together, fa la 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 la. Hear the song, the wind and weather, fa la 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 la.
Beautiful. I'd now like to invite Annie to extinguish our chalice on her birthday. Big happy birthday, Annie. Would you like to extinguish our chalice?
We extinguish this flame,
We extinguish this flame,
but not the light of love and community
but not the light of love and community
which burns in our hearts.
which burns in our hearts.
Oh, thank you. Beautiful.
Thank you, Anne.
Remember, Deanna, would you like to close us out?
Absolutely. Until we are together again, may the stillness of the winter solstice be yours. May you experience the magic of the season and revel in the wonder of nature and the joys of science. May you know hope and joy, and may you find love in all things. May it be so. And I have a postlude. If you'd like to, if you need to leave now, you are welcome to, but I have some music to play here at the end just to kind of send us off. And remember that after the service, we'll have our coffee hour. So you're welcome to go and get your coffee and settle in and come back and join us for some nice casual discussion. Apologies for the technical problems today. Yes, the troll out in force. Be well, everyone.